Hey guys, so in this video I wanted to go over lesson 1 that we did a few days ago. So in lesson 1 we wanted to talk about the relationship in between angles when we have two parallel lines that are cut by a transversal. What do I mean by parallel lines? Well, if we look at one of these four figures that are the exact same, our parallel lines are going to be the two lines that even if they were extended forever both ways, they would never touch. So that is what I mean by the parallel lines. The transversal is going to be cutting these two parallel lines and creating two different intersections, one with the first parallel line and one with the second. So once we have these two different intersections, there's going to be a relationship in between all of these angles that some of them are going to be congruent to each other, meaning equal to each other, and some of them are going to be supplementary, meaning that add them up to equal 180. So let's look at which ones are congruent to each other and which ones are supplementary to each other. So the first word that we looked at is corresponding angles. So corresponding angles are going to be equal to each other. And how we did this in class was that we chose a color and we colored the box so we could color code what example we were looking at on the figure to the left. So an example of corresponding angles. If we wanted a corresponding angle to angle 1, we would look at the second intersection. So this was the angle for the first intersection, looking at the second intersection. If we want a angle within the same position as angle 1, we'd be looking at 5, because the top left corner of the other intersection. So 1 and 5 would be corresponding angles. Another example, and I'm going to write it off underneath the corresponding angles. Another example would be angle 2 and angle 6. Another example you could put is angle 3 and angle 7. Another one would be angle 4 and angle 8. And all of these would be equal to each other. The pair that we're pairing together would be equal to each other. So the next one we want to look at is alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior angles. Well, the word exterior means outside, and alternate is going to refer to opposite sides of the transversal. So if we started with angle 1 and we went on the other side of the transversal, we are actually going to do angle 8 instead of angle 2. So those are going to be our alternate exterior angles. And these two angles are also congruent or equal to each other. The other pair of alternate exterior angles would be angle 2 and angle 7 as a pair. Do you realize that angle 1 and angle 8 were a pair of alternate exterior angles, meaning angle 1 and angle 8 are congruent or equal to each other? Then another pair of alternate exterior angles is angle 2 and angle 7, meaning only angle 2 and angle 7 are congruent to each other. So let's choose another color like we did in class and look at vertical angles. Another word that you can use instead of vertical angles is diagonal. So let me fix our little box for a red for alternate exterior. So for vertical angles, they are going to be congruent or equal to each other. And they're going to be across the same intersection. So if we look at this first one up here, the first intersection, if we wanted a vertical angle to angle 3, we're going to stay on the same intersection of one parallel line in the transversal, and the diagonal angle is angle 2. So angle 3 and angle 2 are vertical angles. Another example of vertical angles, or another example of a pair of vertical angles, is angle 7 and angle 6. If you wanted another, you could do angle 1 and angle 4, so on and so forth. Now let's look at same side interior. So same side interior. Interior is going to be inside. Same side of the transversal. So we're looking for the inside of the parallel lines. Well, the parallel lines are those horizontal lines that are never going to touch. So in between these two lines, we're only looking at angle 3, angle 4, angle 5, and angle 6. And we want the same side. So if I want a pair, or the other pair of same side interior, starting with angle 3, the other angle to be pair is angle 5. So that's going to create one pair of same side interior. Now the other pair of same side interior would be angle 4 and angle 6. These, though, are not going to be congruent. Maybe you can see that in angle 3 and angle 5. They are actually going to be supplementary, meaning they're going to equal 180 together. So let's look at alternate interior. So alternate interior is going to be still on the inside because we have that word interior, but it's going to be on opposite sides of the transversal. So let's look at this. Let's say we started at angle 4. And so on the inside, it's in between the parallel lines. And we want the alternate, so we want the opposite side of the transversal. So the other angle in that pair would actually be angle 5. So we have angle 4 and angle 5 as one of our examples of alternate interior. We also have the example of angle 3 and angle 6 as another alternate interior angle pair. These two angles, or these pairs, are actually going to be congruent to each other. And then lastly, same side exterior. So same side exterior, remembering that the word exterior means outside. So we're looking at on the outside of the two parallel lines and the same side. So we can look at angle 2 because it's an exterior angle. And the same side of the transversal would give us angle 8. Another example of this would be angle 1 and angle 7. And these are going to be supplementary, meaning equal to 180. So I know some of you got confused when we did this in class. Those are your 6 that you need to focus on. The other 2 that are on this sheet is just making sure and solidifying that you know what congruent and supplementary angles are. So an example of congruent angles is any of the 6 words that we put equal to in the parentheses. So corresponding angles, alternate exterior angles, vertical angles, or alternate interior angles. Now, supplementary angles, however, we need to specify that supplementary angles alone means one thing, and when we said that like same side exterior is supplementary, it means another. So if it's just supplementary angles, we're looking at angles that create a straight line. So if we started with angle 1, supplementary angle to 1 would be 2. And this would not be one of those 6 words we just learned about. So angle 1 and angle 2 would be supplementary angles alone. No other classification of the relationship between them. Another example of supplementary angles, if we started at angle 6, well, if you add angle 6 and angle 8, you create a straight line. So angle 6 and angle 8 are supplementary angles. You cannot put another classification on those 2 angles. So let's do a few examples. I will do this in the second part due to having to switch around my iPad.